Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Richard Stevenson, and I'm the director of Stevenson Dental Solutions in San Dimas, California. I'm an emeritus professor of clinical dentistry at UCLA and have private practices in West LA and San Dimas. And I would like to welcome you to this rather long video, but I think it's really good if you watch the details on the Kilgore 7er series with number 30 MO amalgam preparation with a stair-stepped box. It's a nice typing on. It's come out fairly recently. And this is my first time actually working with it, and Kilgore was nice enough to loan me this Typodont for this exercise and several others. I'm going to be utilizing one of the Caries teeth that they have available and show you how we deal with extensive decay. I found this Typodont to be very precise with intricate anatomy that is consistent with a young patient. And I am going to be working with this Kilgore tooth, which is the A2746AB, with mesial caries, and quite extensive in fact. So the rubber dam is placed, and we're going to extend the outline form into all of the fissures, as we typically do on these, and starting with a 330 diamond. I like this because it penetrates through this hard outer enamel quite easily. And for those of you watching, this is a longer video, and I thought it would be good to spend a little bit more time on hand instrumentation and the method of obtaining the outline form, finding caries, having to alter the outline form, and then removing more caries. So let's just let me prep here, and I'll be quiet for a little bit, and you can hear the handpiece moving on the tooth structure. Probably want to take your time and really be mindful of the fact that this is one of the most important things that is evaluated by your faculty in your dental school or the board exam. And outline form is king when it comes to the class 2. So get your depth enough, 1.5 to 2 millimeters. And this 330 diamond is just a little over 2 millimeters long. So you can utilize it as a pretty decent depth gauge. And if you are allowed to use an RGS-1, that can be really helpful for verifying that you have adequate pulpal depth. We're now ready to extend into the proximal. And so I'll take the same burr and just move it towards the mesial. And I'll leave a little shell. You know, while we're doing the occlusal, it's really important to keep the burr perpendicular to the occlusal table. Keep in mind the fact that this tooth is leaning towards the lingual a little bit, so you'll have to adjust your handpiece accordingly. As I start to move the burr farther towards the mesial, I like to move a little bit buccally and a little bit lingually just to get a little bit more of an area in which to work for my next burr, which is going to be a diamond burr that's analogous to a 245, for example, or a 55. And today we're going to be utilizing the 555D to drop the proximal box. You can see I've widened that little proximal area just a little bit. I don't think it's a bad idea at all to use some kind of protective device between the teeth if you're allowed to. This is a fender wedge, orange, and this is an UltraDent UltraGuard. And notice how the UltraGuard is bending away from your preparation. That's the correct way. This is the wrong way to place it because you have no room to extend your burr interproximally So now when we flip it around and position it correctly with the curly parts towards your tooth you're working on, you can see you have those little triangles on either side in which to place your hand instruments, right there and right there. .555 diamond, and it measures a little longer than 3 millimeters. It's a nice diamond to use to get the proper initial dropping of the box. And notice how I tip the burr towards the lingual when I'm doing the buccal wall, and I hold it straight up and down when I'm doing the lingual wall. I'm keeping the lingual wall orthogonal to the gingival wall. This is my clamp cam in action from behind the tooth, looking from the distal mesially, and you can see this little tipping move we make as we start to move the burr further gingivally. I like to try to get a little bit of that angulation started even before we've got our extension, so that I put this as a blueprint for further movements of the burr. Notice we've broken gingival contact first, that's always the goal. And we've left the facial undermined and the lingual undermined. So let's use a Diamond Burr 1169D. I really like this burr. It's great for these hard outer shell teeth. And I can use the tip of the burr and work my way gingivally rather safely, even without the interguard in place. Notice how I try to maintain the convergency of this buccal proximal wall while I'm removing the undermined enamel, or the bird beak enamel, or the J-shape enamel, whatever term your school may use to describe this exit angle here on the facial. You know, it's not uncommon for schools to teach convergency on this lingual or non-functional cusp wall of the class 2. That would be fine, but it's going to give you a little bit of an uneven extension. You know, and my mentors like Dr. Cliff Sturdivant taught me that this wall should be 90 degrees relative to the gingival, in other words, orthogonal. We'll just show you a different view how we can use this diamond from a top-down direction. Sort of a crown-down approach, isn't it, in operative dentistry? It sure is nice having that inner guard, isn't it? Makes it a lot easier. Sometimes I don't think they let you use things like this, which is too bad because we use them in private practice, you know, and it helps to protect the adjacent tooth. So even though we tried to remove the undermined enamel on the facial, we didn't quite do it, probably because we're a little bit underextended. So we can go a little bit further towards the facial. Once again, starting at the top, getting the exit angle the way you want it, right? And then moving the burr more gingivally. I think the Class 2 preparation remains the most challenging preparation in dentistry today. Certainly the Class 2 amalgam preparation, where everything has to be so precise. And this is a Class 2 amalgam. And it may not be used commonly in private practice, or maybe it won't even be used in your dental school very often, but it is a great preparation to master because it really helps to build your skill level for other procedures. At some point, the inner guard is going to be kind of loose and it just sort of flops out. And now we can move into the hand instrumentation. This is a 10-6-14 enamel hatchet, and it's very sharp. And we start at the top, we engage and we push down. And you may notice sometimes that you may start scraping the little premolar there. So it's not a bad idea to reinsert a wedge to get that protective wall that you really need, and yet have a little bit more access to seeing the preparation, a little more visible to see the box without that larger inner guard kind of blocking some of the light and what have you. And I'm really working on trying to get line angles. This is my hatchet cam, and we're now trying to get into that little point angle at the axial lingual gingival, and using the corner of the instrument, not the whole end like we just did there, but just the corner. Actually, it's kind of fun. It's like a little art project sometimes, like a little working in a wood shop or something, or building a sculpture. You get an opportunity to, call upon your artistic interests. After all, you went into dentistry not because you didn't like art. You went into dentistry because you love art and you love doing things like this. So enjoy it. Even when you fail, it's the effort that matters, So here we're just trying to remove a little debris that's built up in the corner. And we'll chop down to that area there. And there's a lot of decay, and I want you to try to ignore the caries right now. One of the mistakes I made on this prep, and once again, this is the first time I've ever worked on this particular tooth, is that it has very thick enamel interproximally. The axial wall is still in enamel. So, but I wanted to go ahead and do the ideal prep as if it was a non-carious regular plastic tooth first, which would have the axial wall as little as 1.2 millimeters up to maybe 1.5. And then I'll show you how I'm going to deepen the axial and then remove the caries. Right now, this is the 330 RGS. And this burr is 2 millimeters in length, and it's a carbide, and it has a round end to it, so it doesn't create too sharp of a line angle. And you can use it just like in a painting way, almost like a brush stroke, to remove tooth structure and get the shape that you want. And as you can see, I'm working on the S-curve area right now. And this tooth is going to have an S-curve on the lingual as well, isn't it? It may be more subtle, but it will be there. Remember that an S-curve is just a blending of the box to the occlusal, and that's going to be an essential part of your outline form. One of the nice things about the 330 RGS is that it doesn't deepen your box or your pulpal dramatically. It mainly works on the walls and the line angles. I just love it. It works so well for getting that nice smooth outline form. So I like the occlusal part, but the proximal part is really a problem. So I'm going to go a little deeper so I can get my preparation about 0.5 millimeter into dentin, and I'm going to utilize, there it is, and utilize the 1169 diamond. And now we're working with the 4-round slow speed carbide to remove caries. I know that I'm going to need to drop that gingival wall down further apically, but at this point I'm just exploring and I'm trying to find out where the caries is going to go in this particular tooth. I have zero experience with this tooth. It's just sort of this fun little discovery, and what it's going to do is it's going to create really kind of a realistic situation where you don't know where the caries is always located on a tooth, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to do your ideal outline form and you're going to modify it, but then sometimes the caries is further than you thought it was, and then you'll remove caries, and then you go back and you modify your outline form again. So you end up in this cycle from step 1 outline form to step 5 caries removal, and then back to step 1, and so on until you finish the entire preparation. And this is the case in the example today. Work the burr peripherally, and work it around the edges, and then spiral in towards the middle. You want a really good finger rest so that things are not flying around, because these round burrs can lose control pretty easily. This is all with slow speed. you see how it's really right up against the 𝐥𝐤, and that's completely unacceptable. We can leave a little stain behind, but if it's not going to be in the pulp, it's nice to remove it. But look at how that undermines the dentin and a little bit of the enamel on that facial wall. And at this point, I noticed that the black caries just sort of fell out. And I think I could have used a spoon instead of the Explorer. I think that was pretty cool. And I'm going to leave those little stains there. You could remove them, but they were hard at this point, and I don't think there's any need to remove them unless your school is teaching that it's really important to remove stains that are not too deep. But let's also remember that pulp exposures are generally considered to be preventable. In the modern world of operative dentistry, we try to approach situations where the decay is very deep with that mindset. And tactile and visual both have to be utilized. Wow, look at that cusp on the distal buccal area there. It's very undermined. So we're going to definitely need to remove that enamel. So back to the 330 diamond, or you could use the 330 RGS. And look how much more extended it is. And there you can see there we have decay up underneath the lingual cusps. So you could either use a round burr, undermine it, and then remove the cusp, or you can just remove the cusp first. So either technique works. I prefer the technique where you use the high speed completely and then just use the slow speed at the end, but sometimes you have to go back and forth. Don't be afraid to pick up a smaller round burr if you can't get the burr into the outline. But the largest burr possible is usually the best because it doesn't put as much pressure. The force is distributed over a larger surface area of the burr. So I'm working on this tooth, and I'm not sure whether this is decay that's going to go into the pulp or not. So I'm going peripherally and trying to be mindful of how deep things are going. And I'm getting encouraged because right now we're really less than 3 millimeters deep pulpally, and the decay is nearly out. So if you use a spoon, it'd probably be a smarter thing to do, but be careful because spoons can get pulp exposures too. But here's a artificial tooth, and I'm kind of just getting the lay of the land on this tooth, so to speak. It's really important to practice with the caries teeth that you're going to be using in school or on an exam and get a feel for them. There's so many of them out there now. Accidental makes 2 different types for the dental practicer, consumer, and then make one special for the ADEX exam called the Composite. Kilgore has been making caries teeth for many, many years. Columbia has caries teeth. They're very expensive, but I think they're a worthwhile investment. You know, when I was in school, we used to work only on extracted teeth mounted in the typodont, and that was really great because we got to experience the real feel of tooth structure. But today, it's a little hard to find all those extracted teeth, and most schools have gone to these simulated versions. And I think it's good, actually, because I think that you learn all the steps and you learn all of the protocols to remove caries in a consistent way. So like everybody can have the same tooth with the same kind of caries and get a really good idea. Do you notice how I made a step here? Because I just wanted to remove the caries affected enamel that was undermined and not make the entire wall removed at the same level. So you can see I've made a step on that facial. This is basically a stair-step proximal, and it's a very common thing to do. You don't have to drop the entire wall on the facial down to the gingival. You can leave this little step in here. Now, if you're on an exam situation, this is all going to be documented, and you're going to want to communicate your rationale for all of these things. So I removed the tooth so you can see this mesial view, so you can understand how the step works. And then you see the rounded line angles that you can get from the RGS burr. You may want to remove just a little bit more of that axial if you're have any question at all about this area. But I saw a nice periphery of clean DEJ, and the material was very, very hard. This is a jiffy wheel, and these can get in between on the proximal tooth if you had a few little scratches from maybe a hand instrument. Easy to use, and they work pretty well. I like to use the jiffy brush afterwards, which has the the abrasive in the bristles. This does not require a paste. Now clinically we like to use these with copious amounts of water spray. You can see how white it is in the center there. And in my practice I'm going to place some kind of a liner in here and just protect the deeper areas of the dentin. But the areas that were possible to be made ideal were done so, and the areas that need to be deeper were made deeper with a really strong rationale. And I am looking forward to treating other teeth on this Kilgore Typonot, and I really appreciate all my friends at Kilgore for loaning me this Typonot for this particular video. Well, with that, I wish you all the best, and I look forward to another video with you real soon. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming your way. All the best.